There is a room in the Nova Prospect portion of Half-Life 2 that plays a bizarre music track. Known simply as Dirac Shore, it's a composition that has an eerie vibe given the presence of numerous strange sound effects. At first, it sounds like a strange echo, and then the sound of a kaleidoscope turning, just before someone exhales deeply as water begins to drip. Its placement and quote-unquote watery sound is fitting given the track plays in a flooded basement room as part of the prison. Even though this track was composed for the original Half-Life, titled as Dimensionless Deepness, I first heard this track in a game that was neither Half-Life 1 nor Half-Life 2. Instead, I first heard this strange track in a Garry's Mod abstract map, a map that would become iconic in the Gmod community. If you go onto the Steam Workshop and search the term abstract, you'll find a surprising number of results. The age of these maps range from as old as 15 years to as new as only a few weeks, showing how abstract maps in Garry's Mod, and Source as a whole, have a long history. To understand how this niche genre of mapping became what it is today, we have to go back 19 years to the year 2005. Shortly after the release of both Half-Life 2 and Counter-Strike Source, a mapper known as CC Nipper began uploading maps for the latter. Their earliest recorded upload was a collection of maps for Counter-Strike uploaded on May 30th, 2005 to Game Banana. Of course, this mapper is commonly known as simply just Nipper, likely an allusion to the famous RCA Victor dog, who just so happens to have a 4-ton statue in Albany, New York. While it sits atop a former RCA Records building standing as the company's former mascot, perhaps it is secretly a monument to the mapper instead. That's because Nipper is arguably one of the most famous mappers in the Source Engine community, having made hundreds of maps in their career, which continues to this day. It's not often you hear about a Source mapper with a portfolio that almost spans 2 decades. However, they're not just any maps. They're the greatest maps ever! The reason I mention Nipper is because they're arguably the pioneer of the abstract genre in the Source mapping community. While most of their early maps, at least the ones that are publicly known, generally follow conventional environments and settings, you can see the change in their mapping style on their Game Banana page. One of their earliest maps is D.E. Van Gogh, which foregoes a traditional realistic mapping style for one that is reminiscent of the works of Vincent van Gogh. However, the definitive sign of this change to strange and abstract maps was the upload of Nipper's Opus to their Game Banana page on November 14th, 2005. A map which bore extremely strange but fascinating environments. What someone considers abstract is sort of subjective. Abstract might just be simply a little odd to some people, whereas people like me consider it to be extremely odd and detached from reality, as is the theming of Nipper's Opus. Look, I don't know about you, but a map where a giant head follows you around, has a room with gigantic dismembered body parts, and includes a warped midiscape at 90 degrees is pretty abstract. However, it's more fair to state that what defines something as abstract is instead a spectrum. It doesn't have to be something completely unreal and detached from reality to be abstract, but one might argue that the maps Nipper made were on the very strong side of the spectrum. Nipper would continue making these maps such as Zuh, Arg, and Blah, among others. And if you want a more detailed history into all of their work, check out Krazzy's video documenting them, which I've included in the description and should be on the screen as well. Of course, other mappers would start creating these bizarre and colorful abstract maps as well, eventually culminating in the creation of other famous abstract maps like Wham City by Ammo and Bull by Dr. Boo, which would be featured in the J2 map pack created by Nipper himself. This was in 2008, the same year when another abstract map would be uploaded to garrysmod.org by Keither. It was simply titled ZWS. And unfortunately, it's hard to find any more information about the map beyond that. The good news is that in the present day we know the map existed because it was re-uploaded to the Steam Workshop by a different user. Now, compared to the works of Nipper, Ammo, and Dr. Boo, this was an abstract map that embodied less the colorful and absurd sights seen by previous mappers and instead leaned into the more surreal, somewhat akin to the works of Salvador Dali and MC Escher, with shrinking hallways, bending rooms, and objects stuck in endless voids. Then, a year later in 2009, a mapper named Shadgrim Garry would release a map titled Abstract Hallways, introduced to the internet in a YouTube video on March 7th, when Shad uploaded a video to their YouTube channel titled Hallway Map, which showcased a custom Half-Life 2 map simply titled Abstract, complete with a 4:3 aspect ratio and a Fraps watermark. It was a fairly normal map with a series of hallways and rooms, until it wasn't. Some hallways would be inverted or upside down. Some rooms had nothing but a void and a few tiles. Some rooms may have had an enormous upside down tree, much more akin to Keither's mapping style compared to that of Nipper. Nevertheless, looking at the comments you can see that it was received pretty well, with some saying, "If this map was a flavor, it would be cool." Sweet Jesus, you pervert. You make me cry tears of joy for your freaky stuff. Very interesting. That's good. Reminds me of the Twilight Zone or a maze. You can also see Shad responding to these comments and giving commentary, such as, "I love Nipper's crazy maps. It was pretty much those in House of Leaves that inspired me." A fun fact about Shad is that they would actually be the same user who re-uploaded ZWS to the Steam Workshop in 2015. How fitting. At this point in time, abstract maps had existed for around 4 years, and despite having dramatic differences in styling and theme, they all generally followed an enclosed, looping map that was more for exploration and multiplayer gameplay rather than following a linear design with a story or a set objective. This would all change when Shad made an announcement on their blog in July of 2009 that they were working on a map titled Paranoia, with the intention of creating a, quote, surreal and creepy map where the player must solve puzzles, explore, and occasionally fight stuff. This was accompanied by a 3-minute video where they showed off an in-depth version of the map, and would continue developing the map throughout the rest of the year, even writing a post about how they upgraded their PC during the process, which was unfortunately done so too early to get a free upgrade to Windows 7. That should really tell you how old these maps are beyond stating that Paranoia is 15 years old as of June 2024, because it would finally end up being released on garrysmod.org on December 31st, 2009. After the toy box debuted in July of 2010, Paranoia would also end up being released on the platform, which is around when I started to play Garry's Mod. This is when I decided to download this strange map, and heard Dirac Shore for the first time in my life. This was the moment when I realized the genuine beauty of abstract art. And this excluded the fact that there wasn't anything abstract about the level at this point. Yet, the eerie atmosphere set by the lifeless rooms accompanied by Dirac Shore made me invested. It made me curious to see what this map held. Paranoia is an incredible map given how its abstract features evolve as you progress through the map. At first, it's largely conceptual if not subjective. The most dramatic change happens after pressing a button which teleports you to a cabin inside of a swamp, which eventually leads you to a house that has this bizarre disconnected hallway that has a large pit in the middle, certainly unfaithful to any real-life building. It further progresses with objects like tiles and even a house floating in an endless void, and then eventually a semi-faithful recreation of MC Escher's Relativity. It does get stranger, and embodies more bizarre settings, but it does so while maintaining a linear playstyle, as you have to fight enemies such as zombies in the Combine in order to eventually get to a train which finishes the level. As a child, I was astounded by the concepts and visuals of Paranoia. I was young enough that I didn't really have a clear understanding of the world, and abstract art wasn't something I had ever experienced. To an extent, I can credit Shad for exposing me to abstract art, something that is remarkable to state when you consider this is a Source Engine map made for Half-Life 2 in Garry's Mod. Regardless, I loved the concept, and fortunately I didn't have to wait long because on May 2nd, 2010, Shad announced on their blog through the perspective of a Dalek named Dolly that a sequel to Paranoia was being developed. Attached was a YouTube video titled Insomnia, a sequel in progress, bearing the name of this new map. Another update would be posted on December 30th, 2010, exactly a year after Paranoia had been completed, where Shad revealed download statistics for the map across the internet, with an astounding 56,296 downloads through the toy box in Gmod itself. One of those was me. The remainder of the post showcased numerous screenshots which promised that the map would be far stranger than Paranoia ever was. Of course, at the time I had no idea this blog even existed, but I eventually found it on the toy box after it was officially released on April 10th, 2011. Compared to Paranoia, Insomnia puts the player into an abstract environment as soon as they load into the map. In front of you lies a checkerboard floor in the middle of an endless void, accompanied by floating objects like a bench and a train departure board. Much like Paranoia, it follows a mostly linear path, with the player being forced to solve puzzles, navigate obstacles, and engage enemies in combat. The abstract concepts are, however, more abstract. Some rooms are turned at a 90-degree angle or bathed in colorful lights and adorned with bright orbs. This map broke my mind, because there were so many concepts I just did not understand or was either unable to grasp in my mind. That's what made it enjoyable to me then and still does now. It's creative, it's special, it's unnatural. Of course, the footage you're seeing in the background was recorded specifically for this video, but this isn't the first time I've replayed the trilogy. I'm not sure if it's fueled by nostalgia, the gameplay, or of course the design of the map itself, but there's something about it that is satisfying. It's kind of like you're coming back to a warm fire in the wintertime. Now, you're probably thinking right now, wait, if this is a trilogy, then where's the third map? Fortunately, after the release of Insomnia, the wait was not long. Because on August 6th, 2011, a few months after the release of Insomnia, Shad announced one final map, accompanied by yet again another YouTube video. A very short status update was also posted on September 16th, but finally, on December 22nd, 2011, the final map for the trilogy was released, titled Hypnophobia. This was a map that felt like Insomnia but on crack and steroids. Far more action-packed, far weirder, and far more challenging. It really did feel like reaching the peak of a mountain, and it elicited a sense of nostalgia given the presence of motifs from previous maps in the trilogy. In a fitting allusion to Paranoia, the map opens immediately with Dirac Shore, reminding you of where it all started. It eventually concludes with the activation of a portal in which you must fight off waves of Combine until it fully activates, in which you jump in and are presented with this message. In Shad's announcement blog post for the release of Hypnophobia, aptly titled The End, they stated that, "I have a feeling there will be more maps. Not right now, of course. I can't stand to look at Hammer right now, and I probably won't for a month or two." The unfortunate reality is that at the time of writing this video, they have not made another abstract map since Hypnophobia. Of course, that's not necessarily a bad thing. While I would kill for a new abstract map by Shad or even Nipper, they've both cemented their legacies as incredible mappers with equally iconic projects. Fortunately, the abstract genre in Garry's mod is not dead. Far from it, in fact. As I stated earlier, there are abstract maps in the workshop that are only weeks old, and there have been constant uploads for years. But you know what's common among all of these? They all reference Shad as an inspiration or reference. To me, that's genuinely beautiful. The fact that this single mapper has established not only a legacy in respect to nostalgia for their maps, but has also inspired an entire community to create maps based off of their style is a fantastic thing to see. Shad and Nipper may no longer create abstract maps in the present day, but that's okay, because there's a new guard which carries on their legacy. It's also fair to say that I personally have been inspired by Shad and their maps, and I've attempted many times over the years to try and imitate their style. I've never succeeded, but when writing this video, I felt a true spark of inspiration to actually try and create a map that respects their style. Which is why I am very excited to announce that on September 2nd, 2024, I will be releasing my very own abstract map on the Garry's Mod Workshop. Probably. If you haven't played the Paranoia trilogy, explored Nipper's maps, or really indulged in any abstract map by any mapper, you're in luck because while many of these maps are either difficult or impossible to get from their original source, many have been re-uploaded to the Garry's Mod Workshop, and I highly suggest you take a look at them. It'll make you feel something. I'm not sure what you'll feel, but you'll find out. So, if you want to keep up to date on the development of the map and my videos, follow me on Twitter, link in the description and on the screen right now. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, like always, leave a like and subscribe! I haven't uploaded a video in over a month, and frankly, I don't have an excuse for that really. But don't fret, because things have been brewing in the background, and soon enough, you're gonna see what's been in the works for a very long time. Peace and love, my friends.